Oprah seems like a happy and kind person, but here are the top 10 red flags about her that we should not be ignoring. First off, we have when Seal exposed her on Instagram. Just days after the Golden Globes in 2018, the singer Seal posted a meme on Instagram consisting of several photos of Oprah, including a photo in which it appears Winfrey is pushing singer Rita Ora toward the disgraced movie mogul and alleged harasser. Seal captioned the images, quote, "Oh, I forgot, that's right. You've heard the rumors, but you had no idea he was actually serially violating young actresses who in turn had no idea what they were getting into. My bad." The meme itself read, quote, "When you have been part of the problem for decades, but suddenly they all think you're the solution." When Ludacris appeared on Oprah to promote his movie Crash, he claimed she ambushed him with criticism about hip-hop lyrics instead of talking about the critically acclaimed movie that he was there to plug. In addition, he said the interview was edited in Oprah's favor. "She edited out a lot of my comments while keeping her own in," Ludacris told GQ. "Of course it's her show, but we were doing a show on racial discrimination, and she gave me a hard time as a rapper when I came on there as an actor." He added, quote, "Initially I wasn't even invited on the show, and they called the night before to tell me I could be on. So after the taping, she pulled me into a room and we had a 5-minute conversation. What I got was that by having rappers on her show, she feels like she's empowering them. It was like being at somebody's house who doesn't really want you there. It was so uncomfortable." He added that she criticized him for using the N-word in his lyrics. "I don't see why people like Chris Rock or Dave Chappelle, who I am huge fans of," he says, "it's okay for them to go on Oprah. They speak the same language as I do, but they do it through comedy, so I guess that's acceptable." Next, let's discuss Oprah shutting down an entire food industry. During the height of the mad cow scare in 1996, Oprah invited Howard Lyman, a cattle rancher turned vegetarian, onto her show to discuss controversial practices within the beef industry, including a process now banned in the US called rendering, which involves turning cow organs into feed for other cattle. While Oprah challenged some of his more outlandish statements, which included the suggestion that the disease could become as infectious as the AIDS epidemic, she exclaimed at one point that his revelations had, quote, "stopped me cold from eating another hamburger." Beef prices plunged for nearly 2 weeks after the episode aired, eventually reaching a 10-year low. In response, a group of angry cattle ranchers in Texas filed a $10 million lawsuit claiming she defamed the entire industry. Our next story is insane and also a bit sad. It's not as if Oprah created a theory behind the best-selling self-help book The Secret, written by New Age guru Rhonda Byrne, but by promoting it on 2 episodes of her show, she may have given it a dangerous level of credence. The book's central premise, the law of attraction, is that positive thinking is the route to obtaining anything you want in life, while negative thoughts will cause bad events to occur. But when Oprah's producers received a letter from viewer Kim Tinkham, who had received a breast cancer diagnosis shortly after the shows aired, they were alarmed by how far she had taken the inspiration. Kim Tinkham wrote that she had decided to forego chemotherapy, instead choosing to follow the book's advice, literally. Oprah brought her onto the show to set her straight and urged her to not, quote, "ignore all the advantages of medical science." Kim Tinkham, who went on to follow another New Age regime, unfortunately died in December 2010. Ultimately, Oprah stood by her position that the law of attraction can affect positive change. Oprah is also known for promoting really bad medical advice on her old TV show. Oprah MD? Not exactly, but her 7 million daily viewers were fed a steady diet of health tips. While well-known guests like Dr. Oz offer sound advice on eating and fitness, the program at times is a forum for some really questionable medical claims. As Newsweek noted in a cover story, actress Jenny McCarthy has used Oprah's show to link some well-respected childhood vaccines to autism, a claim that most experts definitely dismiss. With hardly a challenge from the host, Suzanne Summers and Robin McGraw, wife of Dr. Phil McGraw, have used the show's reach to endorse hormone therapy for women, though it can also boost serious risks of heart attacks and strokes. While Oprah is careful to acknowledge both sides in medical debates, many experts fear that nuance is lost amid the adoring reception given to the latest miracle cure. Some observers also question Oprah's enthusiasm for novel cosmetic surgery procedures, which occasionally lead to really unwelcome complications. As Dr. V. Young, a plastic plastic surgeon told the New York Times if she told viewers that arsenic would make them beautiful, we'd be getting hundreds of calls from people asking us for arsenic. Oprah's also been known to promote really toxic weight loss advice. In 1988, just 2 years after the Oprah Winfrey Show was launched, the TV legend revealed during an episode of her show that she had lost a whopping 67 pounds in 4 months, thanks to an all-liquid diet. She even wheeled on stage a wagon with 67 pounds of fat on it to visually show her audience how much weight she actually lost. In reality, she later revealed that she had, quote, starved herself and messed up her metabolism, which ultimately resulted in her gaining it all back and then some pretty quickly. An anonymous guest wrote an entire article on how being featured in an episode of The Oprah Show was, quote, the worst day of her life. In the article, she writes, being on Oprah changed my perception of what I was doing for a living forever and marked the beginning of my long love affair with social media instead of regular television. The story goes like this. By 2002, she says, I had run my boutique PR firm for 6 years, helping musicians tell their stories, and I was very satisfied doing it. One fateful day, my telephone rang. It was a call from a producer at The Oprah Show. She had read an article about my mom in a magazine where my mom had mentioned her entrepreneurial daughter. Within a week, an Oprah film crew had descended. The show combined live studio and taped interviews with Gloria Steinem, among many famous guests. On the air date, Oprah opened the show by promising, quote, a revealing look at what younger women think about older women. We were told the theme of the show would be generational differences in the workplace, but what it really ended up being was the airing of my painful family struggle in front of 40 million viewers. It turns out the show was really about pitting daughters from my generation against their moms, ambitious women who were at the front lines in the battle for women's equality. There was tremendous pain for all the daughters featured. I'm not writing this to air dirty laundry, she says. I'm writing it to make a point about traditional media. Oprah's philanthropic efforts and her general spirit of giving are really well documented, but even that caught a bit of static last September when she and The Rock, with their combined net worth of well over $3 billion, asked the viewers to contribute to the Maui wildfires while only allegedly kicking in $10 million of their own money. The comment section in their request video turned into such a dumpster fire of criticism that the comments were turned off. In Apple TV's new docuseries, The Supermodels, Cindy Crawford is re-evaluating key moments from her career, including one questionable Oprah Show moment from 1986 that she now claims was, quote, so not okay. Throughout the episode in question, Crawford sat alongside her then representative, John Casablancas. Winfrey asked Cindy to stand up to give the audience a better look at her figure. Now this is what I call a body, exclaimed Oprah. The host then pitched several questions to Casablancas, her representative, who spoke on Crawford's behalf as if she wasn't even there. She's getting a sense, and I'm saying it now in this program, if she wants to, she can be #1 in the business, he said. Looking back on her experience, the fashion icon, who is one of the 4 models featured in the Apple TV series, admitted that the appearance made her feel less than. I was like a child, be seen and not heard, said Crawford in the series. When you look at it through today's eyes, Oprah's like, stand up and show me your body, show us why you're worthy of being here. In the moment, I didn't recognize it, and watching it back, I was like, oh my gosh, that was so not okay. Really, especially coming from Oprah. Despite her humble beginnings, a video began circulating online in 2022 that showed Oprah seemingly left stunned after a fan told her they couldn't afford a $100 jewelry box. The clip was shared to TikTok, and it shows someone approaching Oprah and asking for a holiday gift idea for their mom, who is, quote, not doing well. A wonderful thing is that jewelry box that I had on favorite things, she said, after some thought. A beautiful red jewelry box. That's too expensive for me, the person holding the camera interjects. No, it's not, Oprah argues, shaking her head. It's really not. It's like $100 and something. A little lower in my price budget, the person says. At this point, Oprah seemingly cannot hide her shock as she responds, lower than $100, with an amused smile on her face.
Quote, "When Oprah first had her own show, I used to really love her, but through the years I found that she'd either changed or maybe she actually hid who she actually was. The question is, which of those is true? And what are the red flags around Oprah we simply shouldn't ignore?" Such as our first segment, her hypocrisy and exploitation. So, TikTok user Nikki Is Just Me made a posting 2 years ago highlighting what she felt was the breaking point for her as a fan of Oprah's show. Oprah was interviewing a woman who had survived a plane crash with full body burns and nerve damage, and during her segment, she also chose to read a write-in letter of a stay-at-home mom who was struggling to find her place in life and express boredom at hanging out with her kids and hanging out the house, and the follow-up guilt about how she didn't know how to find any enjoyment in that. Obviously, two very different women. And Oprah made this choice intentionally, rather than follow her own repeatedly expressed opinion that, and I quote, "You can't compare your problems to others. Everyone deserves to feel like just because I'm not dying of cancer, my problems are still valid." She pulled this melancholic housewife letter out to specifically not validate that woman or her emotional displacement. She decided to send this housewife to the horrifically burnt woman's house so she could learn to appreciate what she has at home. TikTok user Nikki stated the obvious. This is disturbing on both ends for both women, because both women had incredibly valid struggles, but to take that housewife who'd been honest about an everyday struggle to a woman with an incredibly unique and difficult one just to teach her a lesson and say, "Oh, you don't understand how you don't have it as hard, you take things that you have at home for granted," well, this was just wildly invalidating for both people involved, and it's hypocritical and goes against Oprah's whole mantra that she likes to insist upon. And she did this because Oprah comes from a group of talk shows that were massive in the 90s where shock value was the norm. So it's been obvious that her style of journalism seems to favor the shock value of breaking news scandals rather than actually seeking the truth. A horrible example many people remember is she wanted the scandal, drama, and headline of being the person to out the famous actor Nathan Lane as gay in the mid-90s during an interview. Luckily, Robin Williams was with him and understood what Nathan was uncomfortable about and changed the conversation with such force that it told Oprah the jig is up. This ain't the first rodeo nor the last, because Oprah seeks shock value to grab viewership and keep an audience. Both she and they are only interested in the gasp, not the context, the explanation. When Oprah's bugging for answers, it's not answers she wants, it's drama. And that's why the Meghan Markle interview was almost 2D the way that it was one-sided, or how she kept asking Dolly Parton what work she'd had done on her body repeatedly. Her show was pure exploitation of people's problems, and it also gave a platform to the equally exploitive people like Dr. Oz, king of fake science, and Dr. Phil, the king of fake psychology. And since they came up, let's talk about Oprah's bad company for the next segment. It's a well-known fact that Oprah is friends with two very bad men. First, a movie director who is the ugly face of the Me Too movement. Second, a certain criminal who has an island. You connect the dots. They aren't alone though. In 2022, her good friend Jerry Harris was sentenced to 12 years in prison for his predatory appetites, let's call it. Oprah also spoke more than once with the faith healer John of God in 2010 and 2012. She loved this guy. They weren't friends, but if we're gonna be highlighting red flags here, I'd say the number of men she surrounds herself with, takes interest in, whatever you want to call it, that commit SA crimes is worth noting. Oprah by now has carefully scrubbed cult leader John of God from her channel, but only after he was convicted of multiple SAs and was investigated for running farms in which he slayed young mothers that he also used as forced labor in gemstone mines once they'd birthed over 10 times. His global fame exploded after he appeared on Oprah's show, and it turns out many of the women that John of God SA'd were introduced to him by Oprah Winfrey's show, but Oprah has never interviewed any of his 600 victims. This, alongside the fact she'd give a platform to Michael Jackson's alleged survivors in order to deflect attention from Mr. Me Too scandal and the pre-hearings of his trial, or even dare to claim to be a supporter of the Me Too movement while turning a blind eye, or potentially a willing one, to the actual S-word people that are in Hollywood, shows a lot of negative character. And that's why our next segment is going to be called No Girls Is Girl. According to the actresses who have accused Mr. Me Too, his behavior was no secret in Hollywood. Oprah, as an insider to the businesses and working with him for years, had to have been aware of who this man was and still chose to work with him. It's even alleged that Mr. Me Too used his relationship and proximity to Oprah to lure in women. The British actress Katie Ann Noble says Oprah duped her into thinking he would help her career. To quote Noble's attorney, he wasn't acting alone. He wasn't allowed and enabled to do what he did to Katie and other women without help. But Oprah has never truly had to face any allegations. Every time they start up, if you pay attention, they end up going dead from Twitter trends within hours, or they're swept under the rug of the news outlet that posted them within hours. A good example is how even even Seal said publicly Oprah knew what was happening to women in Hollywood and did nothing. Then Oprah's little minion, Chrissy Teigen, threatened Seal, and a former neighbor came out with allegations against him within 24 hours, which some people have actually pointed out feels coincidental. Overall, public consensus and the hordes of evidence point that Oprah was well aware of who Mr. Me Too was, and she ignored it, even poached for it, alongside many others to obtain selfish fame. But it's better than blacklisting, something Oprah sees happen to those who do reap her rage, and this is how Oprah treated Monique, a woman who is not only an SA survivor, but she won an Oscar in 2010. And wouldn't you know it, that's the same year Oprah chose to interview her and surprise her by inviting her whole family on stage during the interview, including the brother who SA'd her. So Oprah allowed Monique's parents and her brother to then berate and gaslight her on national TV. And in the interview, Oprah also acknowledged that yes, she was aware of the beef between Monique and her mother at the time. Monique confronted Oprah behind stage about going behind her back and exploiting her trauma for clicks and attention. Oprah said she'd check into it, never called back. Monique then confronted Oprah the next time they saw each other in person at a celebrity event, and Oprah apparently issued a half-assed apology. Within a month though, she's gotten Tyler Perry and Lee Daniels to help engage in a smear campaign which labeled Monique as difficult to work with and other meager rumors, all because she was not okay with Oprah exploiting her trauma in a way she didn't approve. As a result, Monique's career suffers, and when asked about the events that transpired, a very defeated Monique said sarcastically that I wasn't blackballed, I was whiteballed. Thank you, Miss Winfrey. Thank you, Mr. Perry. Thank you, Mr. Daniels. And if you don't stand up for yourself like Monique did and get blacklisted, you lay down and get publicly shamed like poor Toni Braxton. Invited onto the show in 1998, Toni Braxton was a superstar and a 5-time Grammy winner, but due to financial mismanagement and being taken advantage of, she was on the brink of bankruptcy at the time. Oprah was insanely rude and out of pocket to Toni, who was no doubt going through a very difficult time in her life. She told her disparagingly she was to blame for all her financial troubles because she overspent and overconsumed. However, Toni was very publicly known to have been taken advantage of by her record label, as they made $170 million off of her album sales, where she only got 35 cents per album unit sold. Braxton then had to go on tour to promote the album, but she couldn't find a sponsor, so she has to take out a loan to finance the tour herself. Therefore, she makes petty cash from her album sales because of the terms of her record contract literally ripped her off, and she paid a high interest loan to fund her tour, which she went on to promote her album so the record company could make millions while she made peanuts. Like we talked about earlier, Oprah cares about the gasp, not the actual context, so she used the interview instead to tell the world how Toni was used to degrade the woman, act condescending, and call her broke multiple times. Sketchy Charity is our next segment, and it's about how Oprah opened a school in South Africa, the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for Girls, located out of Johannesburg, a school marred with allegations and some serious criminal charges. So Oprah spent over $40 million on the school, but it only provides education to 152 students. Calculations that don't make sense if you factor in the building costs, providing food, providing uniform, and textbooks. There's insane lumps of money missing from her bill. And she's not given a penny to fund any inner city and underprivileged kids' education in the USA. So many people have questioned Oprah's motives to spend a fortune on a super luxurious school in Africa, where no news outlets or people in general can have eyes on it, and believe in fact it may function as some sort of cover for something similar to like the aforementioned Billionaire Island or something worse. The dorm matron, who was cleared on all charges thus far, and the headmistress, who threatened Oprah with a defamation lawsuit and they settled out of court, are, according to many people, only scapegoats. Leaving Neverland is a complete mess of a documentary and situation that goes a little like this. Oprah funded Leaving Neverland, a documentary about Michael Jackson, and interviewed 2 purgers and profiteers, Robson and Safechuck, who accused Michael Jackson of misconduct in their attempt to secure a big payday. And for Oprah to deflect the attention, as prior mentioned, off of Mr. Me Too's scandal and the pre-hearings. So Rob and Safechuck are both determined to be purgers by Judge Beckloff, who dismisses their lawsuits and even reprimanded Robson for lying under oath. So Oprah genuinely used Michael Jackson, who, whether he's innocent or guilty, was completely vindicated and cleared on all counts, and he's also been dead for like 10 years, to cover for her friends' shenanigans. Another piece of Neverland puzzle is a man named Ron Newt, who is going to give a tell-all interview about how he was offered $200K by a mystery person to lie about Michael Jackson causing harm to his son, but he declined. Ron Newt visited Havenhurst in the 80s, and he never accused Michael Jackson of anything. Wouldn't you know it, he died mysteriously only days after Leaving Neverland premiered on HBO, which happened to be only a few days before he was supposed to reveal who bribed him to make the accusations against Michael Jackson. Leaving Neverland premiered March 3rd of 2019. Ron Newt was found dead on March 11, 2019. No cause of death, just died. Many people believe that maybe it was Oprah who he was going to expose had he not died mysteriously. I'm no conspiracy theorist, but suddenly dying right before you're planning on exposing people is a mighty coincidence. What ain't no coincidence is Oprah's "it's all about me" complex. Quote, "My mom has always said Oprah loves Oprah." And Amy from TikTok and her mom are right. Oprah is self-serving and out of touch at this point with everyday people. First, she pioneers trash TV as a TV hostess. Once she makes her billions, all of a sudden she's found a conscience and she is a serious journalist. She would lecture us to not be materialistic and find inner peace, yet promotes luxury products on her show and showcases self-absorbed celebrities. And then you have a periodic list of things she loves, Oprah's love list. All super expensive, beyond the reach of the average person. So much for not being materialistic. And speaking of materials, she makes this huge show of helping Katrina victims by rebuilding their homes, taking tons of credit for it. Then we find out, oop, no, it's actually some local contractors who build the houses. Furnishings came from Target, appliances came from an appliance company that donated them. Oprah didn't have anything to do with it except putting her name on it, with zero funds coming from her pocket. But don't worry, she implored her viewers to donate to the victims. And lastly, the cover of O magazine, month to month, Oprah and Oprah alone poses for the camera to cover her very own magazine. Her network is Oprah Winfrey Network, and it only plays Oprah. Talk about self-absorbed and narcissistic. I'm not claiming she's never donated to charity or done any charity work, but in proportion to how much she talks about being charitable, her donations are not significant. Besides, most celebrities establish charity foundations to reduce tax liability. She's worth what, $3-4 billion? She goes on and on about empowering women. Why doesn't she try empowering some of the 15,000 homeless women in downtown LA where she lives? All right, and probably because of our last segment, which is B. Winfrey's take, aka what Barbara Winfrey, Oprah's former stepmother, said about Oprah. Oprah talked about Barbara before, specifically that it was she who imposed a 3-year intercourse ban on Vernon, Oprah's father, after obtaining that video of him having intercourse with a questionable person in his Nashville barbershop a few years before she told the story. In 1995, Vernon, however, was also accused of essaying a woman, and what was Oprah's response when he was charged? She called it money-motivated extortion and assumed the woman who pressed charges was trying to come after her wealth specifically. Insane. Barbara thought so too. She went ahead and divorced Vernon, only to learn the dark side of her stepdaughter. Oprah's controlling ways were put on full display when B. Winfrey refused to sign a confidentiality agreement in exchange for keeping her home and car as part of the divorce settlement. To quote, her brand is that she's nice, caring, generous, giving person, but that's not how she is. She's controlling. It's all about control. She has confidentiality agreements with pretty much everybody in her life. She has them sign their life away and she has them in her pocket. He also said his daughter told him that she would cut off his trust money if he did not divorce me. The woman has set out to ruin me, destroy me, to take this house away is petty. It's been my home for 14 years. Oprah's a billionaire 3 times over. Her help lives better than this. She said publicly she offered to sell the house and give me the proceeds, but that's a lie. She never said that. Oprah owns property all over the world, so there's no reason to sell this house other than to spite me. It's a personal vendetta. If she was a more decent person, she would realize that what her dad did was very wrong, instead of plotting against me and pushing me out of the scene. Some people can have money and they can be mentally rich, secure in what they have, I guess, but others, how can I put it? Some people you can't take the ghetto out of, she admitted. That's Oprah. It's who she is and it's where she's from. She had money. Everybody was going to know it and see it, but she had to be in control. If that's the case, in the words of B. Winfrey, Oprah can control which vibrant shade of red color she would like to have her flags be, which float around the woman like moths to flame.